Okay, so let's suppose we had, I'm going to start with an easy one, 10ab plus 15b plus 4a plus 6. So 10ab plus 15b plus 4a plus 6. Now this is an easy one in the sense that all the signs are positive. Okay?
That's true.
In a little while, in the next problem, we're going to have some that are negative, but these are all positive. Okay, how many terms do you see?
4.
4. There are 4 terms. The first thing you have to do all the time is always see there's a GCF other than 1. What's the GCF here of all 4 terms? What do you think the GCF here is? Is it 1? You think 2 goes into 15?
1.
It is 1. That's the GCF. The GCF is 1. Okay? So you really can't take anything out like we did the others.
Right.
All right, but now, so look at the GCF. That's always going to be the first step. So as we go further with the factoring, you're going to notice the first step is always to look for a GCF. All right, now, second thing. How many terms do you see?
4.
4. So when you see 4 terms, you want to try factoring by grouping. Factoring by grouping. That's the way you're going to do those. All right? So, factor by grouping. Most of the time, this is the way it's going to work out. So look at number 1 says to look for a common factor. All right. So, factor the terms so that the first 2 have a common factor and the last 2 have a common factor. So notice I'm but I'm underlining the first 2 and then underlining the second 2. You'll notice that was very similar to the one I did earlier. Remember I underlined? Okay? That's what you're going to be noticing, the similarity between what we did here, and what we're doing here. So notice when this part that's underlined, when I underlined it, it was already written as a product, right? And this part here was already written as a product. So when you look at this underlined, that's not written as a product. I got to first of all find the GCF of this pair. What's the GCF of this pair?
5.
5 what?
B.
5b. Very good. 5b. So I can factor out a 5b from here. And then what's left of this pair?
2A
2a
plus
plus 3. So 2a plus 3. And then check yourself. 5b times 2a is what? 10ab. 5b times 3 is what? 15b. All right. Plus. See this middle symbol? That operation? Bring it down. You're going to say plus. Now look at the second group. The second group. What's the GCF of the second group? 2. So 2 times what?
2A
Plus 3. If this thing can be factored by grouping, then what I have in parentheses better be the same. So now notice I'm still underlining this, and then notice that is what you saw here. And number 7? That's what you saw. So now look at those 2 groups, and what do they have in common? 2a plus 3. So can you tell me what the answer is? 2a plus 3 times what?
5B plus 2.
Plus 2. There's your answer. You wrote the original polynomial as a product. As a product of factors. Remember factoring? You want to factor this, so you want to write the answer as a product of factors, and you did. 2a plus 3 times 5b plus 2. All right, let's get another grouping. Number 2. Suppose you had 6x cubed minus 15x squared plus 2x minus 5. So 6x cubed minus 15x squared plus 2x minus 5. Now don't make that one difficult. I think you'll be okay with the first. Now remember, when grouping, you always try grouping the first 2 and the last 2 first. And for us, that's the way it's going to work out. The first 2 and the last 2. It's not always like that though, because notice the steps. I just want to remind you of this. So If step 2 produces a common binomial factor, factor it out. That's the one we've been doing. If step 2 does not, then you're going to rearrange the terms to get something that has something in common. But we're not going to do that in here. It's just going to be the first two, last two. All right, I'm going to show you one where we have to rearrange, but I'm not going to put that on a test.
Can you
Rearrange anyway?
Huh?
Can you just rearrange anyway?
No, you can't just rearrange anyway. All right, so group the first two, the last two. From the first group, what can I factor out?
3x squared.
3x squared. Okay, so again, no one should have had an issue with that. 3x squared. Times what?
2x minus 5.
All right, y'all agree 2x minus 5?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so that's where we're at. So notice I took the first group and I wrote it as a product, right?
Yes.
Just like I did with the other one. All right. I'm going to take the second group and I'm going to write it as a product also. What's the GCF of that?
1.
1. Very good. So you're going to say, remember, you always bring this down right here. You're going to say plus 1 times what?
2x minus 5.
2x minus 5. Just like that.
Love it.
If you did not put that 1 there, you would probably mess up in your answer.
Yeah, I was
You need to put a 1 there. Now, what do they have in common? 2x minus 5, and so what's the answer? 2x minus 5 times what? X squared plus 1. That's your answer. Okay? All right, number 3. All right, number 3, suppose we had this. And number 3, suppose we had 5xy minus 8x minus 10y plus 16. 5xy minus 8x minus 10y plus 16. Now, you know, in the second one, I forgot to ask you this question, but the question should always be, the first question should always be, is there a GCF of all those terms other than 1? No. All right. So then, we're going to do one in a little while where there's a GCF. So then, next part is how many terms do you have? 4. Since you have 4 terms, you want to try factoring by what? Grouping. For us, it's going to work out to where I can group the first 2 and then group the last 2. Okay. First group is always the easiest to deal with. What's the GCF of the first group?
1x.
Just x, right? Just x. So when I factor out the x, I get x times what?
5y.
5y
Minus 8.
minus 8. All right. Now, remember a while ago when we did the first 2, see where that middle symbol was a plus symbol and I said bring it down? Notice, see both of those cases? Whatever that middle symbol is, you bring it down. So this time, I'm not going to bring down a plus symbol. I'm going to bring down a what? A subtraction symbol, right? Okay? All right. Now, what's the GCF that I have here? 2. So I'm going to factor out, though, not a 2, but a what? Negative 2. Negative 2. All right. Now, remember the distributive property. Negative 2 times what is a negative 10y?
5y plus
5y. Negative 2 times what is a positive 16? Positive 8 does not work.
negative.
Negative 8. Because a negative times a negative is a what? Positive. If you're doing this correctly, those two better be what? The same. Okay? So what's the answer?
5y minus 8.
Times
X minus 2.
x minus 2. There's your answer. So you wrote as a product. You factor. You wrote as a product. Just remember, you got to bring down that negative sign, though. And then think of the distributive property. Number 4. Number 4, suppose you had this. Suppose you had 7 plus y minus 3xy minus 21x. So 7 plus y minus 3xy minus 21x. Besides 1, is there a GCF other than 1?
3.
3 goes into all of them?
No.
No, the GCF is what?
Oh,
1. How many terms do you see?
4.
4. We'll group the first 2. I'm going to group the last 2. Let's talk about the first group. What's the GCF of the first group? 1. So you're going to write it as what, though? 1 times 7 plus y. Don't forget, put the 1 there. You're going to need it. All right, now, what's the middle sign?
subtraction.
So you're gonna factor out a negative factor, right?
Mm-hmm.
3xy and 21x. What's the GCF?
3x.
3x. Y'all agree? 3x. So minus 3x times. All right. A negative distributive property. A negative 3x times what is a negative 3xy?
Y plus 7.
Y, right? A negative 3x times what is a negative 21x?
Positive.
Plus 7. Not minus, because what's a negative times a negative?
Negative.
Positive. So it has to be plus what? 7. If you do this correctly, those two should be the same. You may say, well, they're not. Yeah, they are. Addition is commutative, right? Remember, addition is commutative.
Doesn't matter how you write it.
Does not matter in the order in which you
Go to the
add
next
things.
step.
Addition is commutative.
When you go to the next step.
So that means something like 3 plus 5 is the same as 5 plus what?
3.
3. So 7 plus y is the same as what? Y plus 7. So it doesn't matter how you write this. But I do want you to notice that both of these have what in common? Y plus 7 or 7 plus y. It does not matter. It's up to you. I normally put the variable first. So I'm going to factor out a y plus 7 times, and then what's left?
1
1
minus 3x.
minus 3x. 1 minus 3x. And there's your answer. Okay? There's your answer. All right, number 5. We'll do one more at number 5. Okay, number 5. All right, number 5 looks like this. Suppose we have 8a to the 5th minus 4a cubed minus 6a squared plus 10a. A to the 5th minus 4a cubed minus 6a squared plus 10a. All right. What's the GCF?
4a cubed
4a cubed is GCF?
of the whole thing.
Well, yeah, you always have to find the GCF of the whole thing.
Yeah.
2 what? 2a. The GCF is 2a, right? That's that kind of common mistake people make is they forget about that GCF. Every time you factor anything, you need to look for the GCF. The GCF here, all my coefficients are even, so I know it has to have at least a 2. And they all contain the variable a, and which one's the smallest exponent? A to the first. So the GCF is 2a. All right, now listen how you're going to write this, though. So that's a little bit different than the previous 4 we did. Remember all the problems we did before that, though. We found the GCF, so it's the GCF times whatever's left, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so far I have this. I have this so far. I have 2a times what? What goes in here?
4a.
4a to the 4th minus
2a squared.
2a squared minus
3a.
3a, and then
Five.
plus 5. Y'all agree?
Yeah.
Okay, so far that's what I have. Now you may say I'm done because I wrote a product. Yeah, but remember, the direction is always going to, well, it'll say factor. You're supposed to know that the word factor means factor completely. I haven't factored this completely. I'm in the process of factoring. I factored to some point because I wrote as a product this times this, right? But I didn't factor completely because if you notice what's inside the parentheses, if I look at that only, if I look at what's inside the parentheses, 4a to the 4th minus 2a squared minus 3a plus 5.
You can factor some more.
Yeah, except I messed that up. I did mess that up. Doggone it. All right, I did mess that up. It's okay because it is possible to get something like this. if you look at what's inside the parentheses, though, you see where I have this and this? I can group those two. What's your GCF here?
2a squared.
2a squared times what?
2a.
2a minus
That's squared.
2a squared minus what? 1. And then here, what's your GCF?
Minus.
Minus 1, and you're left with 3a minus 5?
Yeah.
Those two are not the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to just say this. Even if you reordered that, which we haven't done yet, you won't be able to factor that.
So would it be?
So that's your
non-factorable?
answer. No, you factor this. That's the answer. All right, there's the answer. All right, I'm trying to find one that's going to work. So let me do one that's going to that's going to work to what I want. Okay. All right. So. All right. Let's suppose I had this one. What's the GCF? 3, right? GCF is 3. So I can factor out at 3. And when I factor out at 3, I get 3 times what? 8a squared minus 12a plus 2a minus 3, correct? All right. So notice, though, what's inside the parentheses, I'm going to rewrite. All right. So although number 5, that was the answer because I could not have factored this polynomial that's inside the parentheses. No matter if I rearranged it, it would not have factored. But this one, I made it up, and I made sure that it does. Hopefully, it does. All right. So you see this what I'm pointing to. How many terms do you see? 4. So I can try factoring by what? Grouping. All right. From the first group, what can I take out? 4a. What do I write?
2a
2a
minus 3
minus 3. From the second group, what can I take out?
plus
Plus
1.
1, and I'm left with 2a minus 3. So notice what they have in common now.
2a minus 3.
So this part here that I'm pointing to, just this, it will be 2a minus 3 times what?
4a plus 1.
4a plus 1. All right. But that is this part here, right? So what some students do is they get so caught up in this that they put this as the answer in the blank. That's not quite correct. What this is the factorization of this, but that was not the original problem, right? Original problem was this, in which case you took out a what?
3.
A 3. So the answer is 3 times this. 2a minus 3 times 4a plus 1. Now on your test, I'm not going to have factoring by grouping where you can take out a GCF other than 1. So the one in your test, you look at the first 4. The first 4, okay? First 4. But there is going to be a worksheet that's going to look like 5 and 6, except it will be on test 2 and not test 1. Okay, so that's factoring by grouping. So when you do that worksheet, that's the idea you're going to use. Now we're going to do a little bit more. We're going to practice again with this Tuesday. We're going to practice factoring by grouping Tuesday. But also in your test is where you're going to factor trinomials. So we need to look at that right now, factoring trinomials. All right.